Hi guys, and welcome to Backpack Cafe. My name's Jam, and I'd like to walk you through another one of these Theravada Buddhist temples outside of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and take a look at some of the features of the architecture, some of the sculptural, some of the elements in the artistic expression here, and try to have an open discussion about, some of these stories and characters that these things are at least hinting at. And I'm learning, I'm trying to understand more and more about the Buddhist aspects. I've spent considerable time around Siem Reap and trying to learn about the Hindu aspects, and the Buddhism of it always seemed kind of confusing because we have two different forms, the Mahayana of the ancient temples and the Theravada of these modern temples in Cambodia. So what we're looking at here is a tree, which is a Bodhi tree with a Buddha inside this shrine with his back to that tree facing to the east. We'll come back and take a look at that a little closer. We have these temple lions, which don't look like those ancient lions we find at the temples in Siem Reap. These look perhaps more Burmese or something. Now, the lions could represent sort of a reference to royalty, right? Because the Buddha was a prince, and also some sort of a protective guardian spirit here. Those lions, like I say, we're looking sort of like Burmese lions, whereas this one that we're approaching much more resembles the lions that we find in the ancient temples around Siem Reap. Shiva temples, as well as Angkor Wat, and some of the later Mahayana Buddhist temples like Ta Prohm, Bayon, Prayakan. They all have lions. This Naga does not appear at all of the temples. I don't know that it appears at a purely Shiva temple. The earliest one that I'm aware of is at Preah. That's the temple that sits on the border between Cambodia and Thailand atop this large cliff. That dragon mouth that the serpent is coming out of is a makra, and a makra is a sea creature. Sometimes it has legs, sometimes it has the nose of an elephant and the mouth of an alligator. This character is Garuda. Garuda is the vehicle for which Vishnu, one of the three primary gods, that's what he rides on, as a Garuda. Garuda and the Nagas are brothers, half brothers, and there's rivalry between them. Garuda is a single character. The Nagas, there's many Nagas. Garuda does have a brother who is the chariot driver for the sun, and he was born prematurely and has some kind of a deformity. These rabbits are something interesting that I've never seen before, and I'm curious, although I'm guessing that maybe they could represent some kind of a year of the rabbit in Chinese zodiac. The doors are awfully interesting, and the carving is quite detailed. We find a lot of this wooden carvings around Cambodia in furniture and doors. Notice the shape of this Naga, this serpent's head, how it's sort of like a heart shape with a sharper point at the end. And the tree that the Buddha was enlightened under, the leaves from these trees have that same similar shape. Even the design work you can see on these pillars also sort of reflects that shape. Oftentimes the head of the Buddha might even reflect that shape. It even is sort of resembling a lotus flower, an unopened lotus flower. So we get those, oftentimes that shape is a recurring pattern and theme that we'll find. Now this tree I'm not sure if these trees are maybe directly from the original tree that the Buddha sat under, which still exists in India. And then about 2,000 years ago, there was a clipping from it taken to Sri Lanka. And I know in Hawaii, there's a tree in Honolulu, which is, taken from that tree that's in Sri Lanka. So in Hawaii, there's a Bodhi tree that is a direct, on the direct line of that same tree that the Buddha actually sat under. Some of these panels here, the story I'm not familiar to, and I think what they could be, when the Buddha was enlightened and teaching, people would come to him and tell him of problems that they had, and then the Buddha could remember all of his past lives and the situations in it, and he would remember these people from past lives and tell them like who they were and what they did in a past life, and how the problem that they're experiencing in their current lifetime was being impacted because of past events in prior lifetimes. So I think maybe that's what these panels here could be telling, some of those stories, Jataka tales they call those. There's one interesting one that I would like to know more about, and it's located inside that shrine that we were. We're going to go back into that in a little bit coming up. So, the serpent, you noticed that his body laid, on the banister and railing all the way around this particular temple. Now, if we interpret that serpent as being a symbol or reference to water, then water is being implied to circle the entire temple itself. These items are called chetties or stupas, and inside of those are cremated remains of either a family has built that, or it was an important monk or someone who it was built for. Here you'll notice that the body of the serpent goes the entire way around that. Makra, that dragon's mouth that these serpents are coming out of, is the vehicle for the river Ganga. So he certainly represents a water being, as well as in Hinduism, certain gods will be guardians of particular directions. Varun is the god of sea and sky, and he is the western direction. He's the guardian of the western direction. Now, in Indian iconography, Varun oftentimes will ride Makra, that serpent that has the nose of an elephant and the head of an alligator, and sometimes even the body of a lion, or with legs. In the Cambodian depictions of that, however, Varun is oftentimes not on a Makra, but he's on like a goose. Now, whenever you look at the doorways on the southern direction, and again, these are at the Hindu temples or at the Mahayana temples, the ancient temples, not these modern ones. These modern Theravada temples don't show those depictions, at least not often. The southern side is Yama. He's the god of death and judgment, righteous judgment. He rides a buffalo. On the east is the direction which is guarded by Indra, who is the king of the gods, and he rides on an elephant. Sometimes the elephant has 3 heads, sometimes it's a single-headed elephant. But you'll see on the eastern side above the doorways, there's carvings of, a person on an elephant. The northern direction is much more difficult to understand. The god is Kubera, and he's the god of wealth. However, what he is shown on in the Cambodian temples is really kind of confusing. He's oftentimes shown on on a pig or on a horse or on a mongoose, and sometimes on a human being. This is in the Hindu depictions of it. In Cambodia, he's shown oftentimes on one of those heads that look like it's devouring something with no body. We'll talk about that later, what that could mean. Right now, let's take a walk inside this shrine and have a look at this, some of these paintings on the wall. You know, and again, the Buddha was facing to the east whenever he was enlightened, and we'll often find these, the trees, sometimes in the pagodas, or at the back of the temples, they have a painting of a tree. And this is where he was when he comes to his ultimate, understanding about the situation of human existence and how to alleviate yourself from the cycles of rebirth and death and rebirth and death. This particular painting here is what interests me. This is a Jataka tale about a time when the Buddha made peace between Garuda and the Nagas. And what's interesting about that, and why I want to learn more about that particular Jataka tale, is some of the carvings around Siem Reap that I couldn't understand. As well as, and this is maybe one that we'll notice more often that doesn't get much attention to it, is the Garudas that are on these balustrades with the Nagas sometimes. Now, these ones, they don't show that. But sometimes we'll find the Naga, and there'll be a Garuda in the center. Now those were created by Jayavarman VII, who was a Mahayana king. And, I don't know that any other king was carving the Nagas and the Garudas on the same railings like that. So here are some more of those small, they look like small chambers for ashes, I'm assuming, are what these raised little temple hut things are. We find those outside of homes, something similar in Cambodia, spirit houses, so that spirits will occupy these little houses and not come into your home. Here what we have, this is absolutely a Shiva. Shiva is the god of destruction. He's one of the very most powerful of all Hindu gods. There's 3 gods with the capital G, and Shiva is one of those. Vishnu and Brahma are the other 2. And with this, what we see is that thing that was in his hand with the round end, a mace, is something that's used by Vishnu, not Shiva. And in his hand, we see there's like a book, which is something that is held by Brahma, not Shiva. So this Shiva statue here sort of has some of the qualities and characteristics of all of those primary gods. Shiva, of course, Vishnu and Brahma, as well as his hand. You see that his hand is facing out like that. That's something that we see the Buddha, a mudra that the Buddha does. So that's a pretty interesting carving. And I see that other places in Cambodia as well, where they have, it's not the features that are unique to a particular god, but it's, a mixture of those into a single sculptural, depiction of the gods. This tree here it looks like one of those banyan trees, and they're like a parasite. So there must have been a bigger tree on the inside of that had died and decayed, and then only leaving the shell of the banyan tree that was once around the outside of some other tree. I'm curious if that might have been another one of those Bodhi trees that, that parasite banyan tree might have snuffed out at some point. So this temple this pagoda, this wat, is really very small. There's actually not. I don't recollect seeing a crematorium here, or like a furnace to burn deceased people to ashes. There's not very many of the chetties, stupas for the burial ashes of these people. So I did look on Google Earth, and I tried to go back as far as I could. About the year 2000, it was as far back as I could go, and it looked as if there was a pond in the front of this. It was kind of by itself in a field. So I'm curious. I think this particular place here, and a lot of the pagodas, were ancient sites. Brick prasats could have been there, some sort of a brick structure from hundreds or 1,000 years ago or more, that had disintegrated, and oftentimes we just find some of the stones that were over top of the doorways, the posts that were holding up the lintel that went over top of the door, the linga. Actually, we don't find the linga as much as we find the yoni. That's something we'll talk about in future videos as well. Now here you can see on the roof how the naga and that makra are being utilized on the roof. Now we do see that this particular use of nagas on the roofs and over top of the doors like this in a lot of the ancient temples, but not so much with the serpent on the stairways or on the balustrades that go around the temples. I don't see that as often, and I think that was a later development. Now this guy inside here, this monk meditating in what would seem to be perceived as a cave, this little hut with is like a cave perhaps, and he's like a monk wearing like tiger skin, similar to Shiva. And then those Buddhas down below there, you noticed, are awfully maybe Chinese in their appearance. So the Chinese would be a Mahayana influence and not Theravada. So you see there's a lot of a mixture in these modern Theravada temples with Hindu, Mahayana, and Theravada symbolism all kind of competing together here. There you see that face. It could be Rahu, who swallows the sun. His head was cut off during the churning in the Sea of Milk, if you followed me in another video. And there's other characters that face could be. We'll talk more about these things. The volume of material is immense, so we just kind of bounce around and try to explain it as it comes. If you like the videos, please comment, like, subscribe, all of those things. So thanks and have a great day.